Well, good morning. It's good to be here again at Zion Chapel, and we're looking through the epistle or Gospel of Luke, and we come to chapter 18, and as I've said before, in many of these chapters there are many themes contained in the chapter, and an opportunity for everyone to receive something. Now then, it starts out with a parable, and the theme of that parable is that men ought always to pray and not to faint. And then the Lord gives a little story about a certain city, a judge which feared not God, neither regarded man. And there was a widow in that city, and she came unto him, saying, Avenge me of mine adversary. And he would not for a while. But afterward he said within himself, Though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this widow troubleth me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. And the Lord said, Hear what the unjust judge saith. And then shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him? Well, during the last 5 years, I've been afflicted by one thing after another, and sleep has been taken from me, and I've been spending time just crying out to God, Oh God, meet me, you see. And on certain occasions he has, certain occasions he's touched my body, and there's been improvement there and improvement there, but generally speaking, the condition was getting worse. Until it came to last Thursday week, and seeing the cardiologist, I said, well, what are you going to do for me? He said, well, I can't do anything more for you because you need a new heart, and he couldn't give me one. And then he even had his nurse phone Suzette and say, well, one of the medications, no sense in continuing that because it will do no more good. Now, I had been crying out to God, when are you going to meet me? When are you going to meet me? When are you going to touch me? Or start to touch me? Because some had said that they had received several years ago the thought that I'd be like an eagle, that goes down almost to death and then comes up again. And they had the assurance I'd come up again. Well, I was saying to the Lord, when's this going to take place? If the cardiologist says he could do nothing more and you're not moving, where am I going? And I had a little vision of the night, and I saw a wall. And that wall was covered with ivy. And in this vision, I was peeling back a part of the ivy. And after I peeled back a part of the ivy, there were 3 numbers there, 158. And, I was musing on that. What is 158, you see? Then it occurred to me that it would be the 15th of August. And then I remembered on the 15th of August, I would be at Kitchener Church, and the thought had come to me beforehand to ask the Kitchener Church to pray for me. I just felt that that's what God wanted. So we travelled up to Kitchener, and on that Sunday, the 15th, I preached, but I was very, very weak indeed. I mean, I had to lean on Suzette all the time just to move. And then after installing Stephen as the assistant pastor and youth pastor, I sat down, they had the photos, and then Pastor John Heyer said, "Can we pray for you?" And I'd forgotten to ask for them to pray. Well, I said, "Yes, please." And he said, the thought has been going over in my heart. In heaven there's a storehouse of all the organs of the human body, and everything that we need is there. It's a question of apprehending them. And I'd had the same thought, you see, that somehow or some way, I could have another organ or something. Well, anyway, he spoke that. I said, "Oh, yes, please." Well, they prayed, not very long, but I felt somebody go into my heart. There was a click, and I got the words, "It is done." Well, actually, from that moment onwards, I could get up, walk by myself, and I started to feel stronger. And I was very grateful to God for that. But the constant crying out to God until he moved. And then, in a certain sense, this parable contains another thought of avenge, you see. And we'll see how it all works out in a moment. But my mind went back many years to the Lockerbie disaster in Scotland, when the Pan Am flight exploded in midair, and 251, I think it was, people lost their lives. And of course, it was traced to Gaddafi. But they had a kind of a memorial service in Lockerbie when they invited the relatives of those who had lost their lives, and mostly American. And Mrs. Thatcher was there, she was a prime minister. But the extraordinary thing was they had a clip of that. I saw a clip of that service, and the only part of the service that they gave a clip of was the Methodist minister or the Church of Scotland minister, I'm not sure, standing up and saying, "Did I hear the word avenge?" As though one should never think of that, you see. And all last night, Lord was dealing with me along this line, and he said, we should not avenge ourselves, because he said, "Vengeance belongs to me, I will repay." And, I was thinking of this situation with Gaddafi. Seemingly he has escaped. But the Lord said, "Oh no," he said, an evil work is not judged quickly, so that the hearts of men might be fully intent on doing evil. He said, "I haven't dealt with him yet, because I'm using him still for my purposes." But then I seem to see what would happen when Gaddafi does die, and how the terrible vengeance of God will come upon him. Now, in our circumstances, we might be having trouble from evil spirits. And certainly, during this long time of problems I've been having, it has been spirits that have been troubling me. And I've been thinking, "Lord, when are you going to deal with them?" And the Lord was saying to me, he said, "Oh, they know they know that I will take vengeance on them. And they are very, very terrorized at that thought. He said, but I have a time when I will take vengeance on your enemies, on all those that, through spirits in their lives have indeed brought this sorrow to you. But he said, I've been using it. And these two things in this parable are very important indeed. Number one, we do not give up prayer. That's one thing that the Lord made very clear to me during this long period. He said, you do not give up. You do not give up. You pray all the time. You pray all the time. He said, because there's going to be a moment when I'm going to, as he said, avenge you speedily, when I'm going to remove those things that have come against you, and when I'm going to bring my vengeance upon them, speaking of evil spirits, you see, here in this case. And he said, be patient. Let me work out what I want to do in your life. And I must say that all these hospital visits and periods, and also the pain at night, has given me a totally different perspective, shall I say, towards the sick. And then, of course, I got that little chorus, about rejoicing. Well, the Lord is coming, and his healing power is going to be released. And the Lord was saying, to be a channel for my healing power, you have to be sick. You have to experience sickness. You have to experience that which those to whom you are going to minister are experiencing. And if you notice that those who have been used in a singular fashion for divine healing, shall we say, have had times of great sickness during their lives. Smith Wigglesworth, for example, was 6 years in constant pain, and yet the power of God was being manifested through him. And so it was that God was saying, look, I have to prepare the vessels that I'm going to use. And he said, sickness, those who are going to be used for sickness have to experience sickness. Those who are going to be used to deliver people from depression have to know what depression is like, and so on. And so that is the first parable. And, thinking of Gaddafi, because we're, shall I say, afflicted by Gaddafi out in West Africa, because we want to get into Libya. But Gaddafi has made things very, very difficult indeed. And so I was contemplating, Gaddafi's end, when God would rise up eventually and deal with Gaddafi. And, it's a terrible thing that will come upon him, because the Lord gave me an idea of what will happen, shall I say, to Gaddafi. And essentially, he will experience the torment with the beast and the image, and all those that receive the mark of the name of the Antichrist, and they will be tormented, you see, in the presence of the Son of God and his holy angels. And that is found in Revelation 14 and verse 10. And no rest, day or night. You know, vengeance belongs to me, saith the Lord. You know, one of the things he's made very clear to me is this, that there is no, shall I say, anguish on earth that can compare with the least anguish in hell. And God is a righteous judge, but he has his time. And those who have come against us, and those who have afflicted us, and those who have risen up and are blocking us from doing the work of God, their time will come. But, oh, you know how terrible their situation will be. But God has his time. And he made that very clear, concerning my own body. He said, perfect timing. He said, I'll touch you at the point of perfect timing. And apparently that was that last Sunday. And it was such a blessing, and I'm starting to feel stronger, but, however far you go down, you've got to come up again. And so I've got a little way to go to get back. But all the sense that God is in control of your life is very important indeed. And so wherever you find yourself this morning, don't give up prayer. Keep praying until the answer comes. And, feel free to ask God, how long is this going to be? Sometimes he tells you, sometimes he doesn't. And that peeling back the ivy and seeing those three numbers, 158, well, I tell you this, it was a wonderful thing. And, that is a turning point. But, of course, I need further touches, but I'm going to press on until I come back to flying against like an eagle. So, that is the first parable, the first theme, and it's a word of encouragement. See, God will deal with situations, and the enemy knows. Now, the next thing he talks about is attitudes. A Pharisee and a publican. And they both come to pray in the temple. And the Pharisee, who has sought to live a righteous life, thanks God in verse 11 that he's not an extortioner, unjust, adulterer, or even as this publican. And the attitude of the publican was quite different. He couldn't lift up his eyes, and he just said, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. And this is something that when we come to God, we must not trust in our own righteousness. We must not trust in things we are doing. Nothing in my hands I bring. And that is the attitude that we must have at all times. The attitude of humility. We are nothing. We are what we are by the grace of God. And Paul said, well, who hath made thee to differ one from another? Who hath made thee differ one from another? Traveling the world and seeing people in different countries and in different situations. And the Lord said, you could have been like that, but for my mercy. But for my mercy. And we should thank God from the bottom of our heart that we are what we are by the grace of God. I have a little saying in England, and simply it is like this. I didn't have any shoes, and I was bemoaning the fact until I saw someone who had no feet. I was in India once and in a hotel, and I was amazed. In comes a man, and cradled in his arms, shall I say that, was obviously his brother. He was deformed, and he had no arms or anything like that, and very small of stature. But they're obviously a wealthy family. He was well dressed, this fellow, but he had no arms, and incapable of helping himself. And I thought, but for the grace of God, I could have been born like that. We must thank God for who we are and what He's done for us. And it is so important to see, others who come into this world with great, shall I say, deficiencies. We continued our journey to Starville and then to Erie. And, of course, the situation is not good there amongst the girls, and now some of the fellows. And Pastor Dan Karam was saying about a certain girl. He said, well, look at where she's come from. Look at her background. And there was a truth there, coming from a terrible background. And because of that background, it contributed, in a certain sense, to the horrible situation she is in today. But I don't know, I always have great confidence in God's judgments. And really, God looks beyond the background and the situation from which we have come. And do you know what He looks at? He looks at our heart. Which way do we really want to go? Which way do we really want to go? And in the end, he grants our request. And you know, those who have come from difficult backgrounds, they so often want to stay there. And God grants that. Well, the conversation around the table, and that was the day before we were going to have the meeting, was I was talking about hell. And this has apprehended me more than anything else. You know, the understanding of hell and eternal judgment. But Jesus was like that. You study the teachings of Jesus, and he talked more about hell than anything else. And I look at the book of Revelation as being a blessing of God when all these judgments will fall upon the earth, because it's God's way of saying, look, if you continue this way to the inhabitants' sin, you are going to experience these judgments perpetually. But you notice they do not repent. There's only one group that repents, and that's those who are in Jerusalem. The others, in spite of all the judgments, do not repent. They do not repent. And trying to say to some of these girls, look, if you choose this path, you are going to hell. And trying to give them an understanding of what hell was like. But somehow it doesn't have any impact because they so love their sin. And we do have that problem in the fellowship, that in spite of making the two paths very clear indeed, there will be those who will choose the path of wickedness because they love wickedness more than righteousness, and hell does not affect them until they get there, of course. Well, then we have this situation of a certain ruler. And he comes to Jesus. I'm in verse 18. What shall I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said unto him, well, why callest thou me good? None is good save one, that is God. Now, look, you know the commandments. Do not commit adultery, do not kill, do not steal, do not bear false witness. Honour thy father and thy mother. And the young man said, well, look, all these I have kept from my youth up. And then Jesus said, well, you lack one thing. Sell all that thou hast and distribute unto the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come, follow me. But what was the attitude of the young man? The young man loved his riches. He was covetous. He loved his riches. And this is what we've got to be very careful of. what do we love? What do we love? What is the most important thing in our life? You see, I have, been in conflict with these girls. What do they really want? What do they really want? What do they really want? The things of this world. See, and that's the young man. You see, here he was offered treasures in heaven, and he opted for the things of this world. He opted for things of this world. And Jesus said, how hardly shall they that have riches enter into the kingdom of God? For it is easier for a camel to go through a needle's eye than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. And so those that heard it said, well, who can be saved? And at times you look at a group and say, who can be saved? Who can be saved? Well, Jesus said, all things are possible with God. In other words, we can come to God and say, Lord, give us a desire for eternal things. Eternal things. Eternal things. Give us a desire for eternal things. You know, it's so important, the condition of our heart. Condition of our heart. So important, the condition of our heart. And Peter said, lo, we have left all and followed thee. And he said unto them, verily I say unto you, there is no man that hath left house or parents or brethren or wife or children for the kingdom of God's sake, who shall not receive manifold more in this present time. You see, our attitude, our desires are going to affect not only our eternity, but our present. I can testify that giving up, and excuse this little testimony because don't think I was rich, I was not. But when I first was saved, I had a little bank balance, and it was little. But my confidence was in that little bank balance. And I was walking along the street in London near my home, near my parents' house, and over the other side of the street I saw a huge angel. Now this angel was huge, and I've told you before that angels vary in height, but this was a huge angel, and I thought the second coming. And of course, I thought, well, I'll be there, and that's all there is in life, to make sure you're in the second coming. And this angel came near to me, and I got so excited, all ready to go up with him, and he stopped. And his hand came on the bank that was just opposite me, where my little fortune, perhaps of $100, was there. And, he didn't need to speak, but he conveyed to me that if my confidence was in that, I was not going to make the second coming. You see, it's not actually having these things, but it's the attitude of our heart towards things. And we've got to be very careful of this. But you see, God has enabled me to have many hundreds of dollars after that. But that moment I had to make a consecration, give up that little bank balance of mine. See, but I tell you this, when you give it up, look what it says. Who shall not receive manifold more in this present time. You know, there's a pastor friend of mine, not in our fellowship, but somewhere else. And many years ago, he became pastor of this church. But here we are, he's talking. He said, I came into this house, and he said, I thought, Lord, I could never live here. It is too big for me. It's such a nice house. And the Lord said, I want you to have it. So you see, there are times when God says, I want you to have it. Yeah, I've just got another car, and it's probably cheaper than anybody else has paid for a car, but it's a very nice car. And, you know, a pastor we get our cars from said, the Lord spoke to him and said he wanted me to have that car. Well, I thank God for that. See, God does bless us in this life. He does bless us. He does bless us. You know, my wife and I used to have to sleep in our car at times traveling across the United States because we simply did not have any money. And then the Lord said, you know, there's coming a time when you'll stay in the best hotels throughout the world. Well, that's happened. We haven't paid for them, of course, but others have for us. But I want you to see that God will bless in this present time. And then in the world to come, we have life everlasting. And so, you know, when God said, I want you to give up something, give it up. You're going to get something far better later on. Well, he then turns to his disciples and points out the fact that he is going to be put to death and rise the third day. You know, with all these things, there is the sufferings of Jesus, the fellowship of his sufferings that we have to experience. For as we suffer with him, we shall also reign with him. And then the chapter concludes with the experience of blind Bartimaeus. And it's brought out more adequately in Mark 10. But I always remember this little parable because of our experience in India once, and invited to speak to a group at night, all the floodlights in the field, and I don't know, may have been 800 or 900 people there. And it was very interesting, this meeting. It had been well advertised. The people were there. There may have been 800 or 900 people. And the evangelist who was in charge asked for deaf people, deaf children. And about 5 or 6 deaf children were presented to him. He prayed for them, they were healed. Well, of course, the atmosphere was electric after that, and I got to preach immediately afterwards. And what came to me was blind Bartimaeus. Now, blind Bartimaeus had the wonderful opportunity of responding to an offer by Jesus. And here it was. I'm not going into all the details. When he heard that Jesus was passing by, coming out of Jericho, he cried out, and Jesus stood and caused him to be brought to him. But in verse 41, Jesus says this, "What wilt thou that I should do unto thee?" I mean, what a wonderful opportunity. Here is the Son of God, there is blind Bartimaeus, and the Son of God says, "Well, what do you want me to do for you? What do you want me to do for you?" And I felt somehow, as we conclude this morning, the Lord would say the same thing to us. What do you want me to do for you? What do you want me to do for you? The chapter starts with prayer, and you keep on praying, and God answers. It concludes with the words and invitation, "What wilt thou that I should do unto thee?" And I feel somehow this is what the Lord is saying to us this morning as we close. What do you